Hello friends, welcome to our channel. I am Manali, and as we all know, the GIC 2021 exam has been postponed. This is due to the fact that the ongoing pandemic situation has hit us hard. Yes, so it's very important that you stay safe, you take care of your families and yourself, and follow all necessary protocols. But at the same time, let's try to be positive, right? The situation is very, very grim, but let's keep our spirits high and let's try to maximize the time that we have in our hand. Let's use this time and let's brush up on our English skills. With this thought in mind, this video will talk about descriptive English paper, specifically revise Precis Writing. Now let's look at the agenda of this video. So we're going to start off by looking at the question paper structure. Then we will look at Precis Writing as a whole, the main points, and then we will move on and try to pick out some points and try to make a mental note of it so that you remember them. And then we will move on to the major evaluation criteria, or how Precis is evaluated. So that will help you to think and structure when you are writing your Precis, and we will finish it off with a sample Precis. Now, if we take a look at the question paper format, uh, we are here concerned with the part C, right? So the part C has your essay, we have the Precis, and we have the comprehension passage, right? So the total marks would be 30, right? And you will be having 1 hour, 60 minutes to complete these three topics. Just a reminder that ixamBee has launched a campaign. It's called gharsestudykarona, where we will be having daily free live classes at 11 a.m. sharp. And this would be preparing you, ensuring that your preparation isn't postponed, even if your exam is. And this will cater to all important competitive exams. Also, another thing that we are celebrating a 25% offer. So if you would like to avail of this offer, you just need to use the coupon code SRCP25 and you can get a 25% off on all online courses. Let's come back to Precis. The word Precis, as you know, it means pruning, right? So what are you doing when you are pruning? You are trimming off. You are removing all portions of the plant, right? All the specific portions of the plant, the parts of a plant that is redundant, that is excess, that you do not need in any point, right? You do not cut off or you remove the vital parts of the plant, right? So let's use this imagery, and now let's come back to Precis as a whole. So therefore, Precis is a art of compression. So you need to summarize, you need to compress, right? Now, when you are compressing, it is important that you retain the main idea and the supporting points. Now, if when you are summarizing or writing your Precis, if you compromise on the main idea and the supporting points, then your Precis is incomplete, right? So you will be losing marks there when it comes to content. So your whole idea, your focus should be to identify the main idea, remove all the redundant aspects, and then try to compress that main idea and supporting points into a coherent paragraph, right? Now, another very important thing, what about the size? How long? As you all know, it should be 1/3 of the original. Now, this is something which you should strictly remember, right? So when your Prezi is evaluated, you have a margin of around 5 words more or 5 words less. It should be a +5 or a -5. It should not be more or less than that. You need to strictly adhere to the word limit. If you overshoot the word limit or you do not meet the lower limit, your points, your marks would be deducted. So another very important point is the title, right? So if your Prezi doesn't have a title, that will also fetch you low marks, right? Less marks. So what about the title? Please remember your Prezi should have a title. The title should be short, it should be crisp, right? It need not be too long and too wordy, right? It can be small and short and crisp. And it also needs to reflect the essence of the paragraph. If it is not telling you about the paragraph, if it is not telling you about the passage, you read the Prezi and you cannot understand what it's all about, then the title makes no sense. It's not appropriate. So, in order for your title to be appropriate, it should be short and crisp and it should reflect the essence of the passage, right? So, let's look at the last very, very important point. So, write in your own language. Your Prezi needs to be in your own language, right? You cannot copy paste from the passage, right? Okay, so now if you take a look at this slide basically summarizes all the important points related to the Prezi, things you must remember. Now you might ask me then, what is the difference between a Prezi and a paraphrase? Now, please understand a paraphrase picks up, uses each and every information that is available in the passage. It doesn't leave out anything, it includes everything. But with Prezi, we are not using a lot of it. We will not be using adjectives, we will not be using figures of speech, we will not be using quotations. So we will only be focusing on what is relevant. Yes, that's the main difference between a paraphrase and a Prezi. Now, let's quickly take a look at the main points, right? Here we have all the main points put together. So when you are writing your Prezi, you should start with highlighting the main idea. As I said, you have to identify the main idea. If you do not identify the main idea, you usually end up talking about points that are mainly irrelevant. That is in no way the main idea or is in no way a very important supporting point. So you should start off by highlighting the main idea. This will help you to be precise. This will help you to focus on what is relevant. Okay, the next thing, you must write in third person, indirect form, and appropriate tense, right? So you do not write in first person, it should be always third person, indirect form, and appropriate tense. Now, what do I mean by appropriate tense? When I say appropriate tense, it means you should use the tense of the passage. Try to identify the tense used in the passage and use it for your Prezi, right? Okay. The third point is whenever you are summarizing, whenever you've picked up, you've highlighted your and identified your main point and you have identified the supporting points and you are putting them all together, the Prezi should be cogent. That entire idea of assembling all your main points should be cogent. What do I mean when I say cogent? It means from one thought to the other, from one point to the other. The progression should be number one, logical, and it should be smooth. There should not be any gaps in your writing. The idea should flow from one to the other, right? If there are gaps, then the entire précis becomes wayward, it becomes scattered, and there is a break in the logical progression, right? So be careful when you're writing and assembling all your points. Make sure the ideas have a logical progression. You're writing in simple, correct English. There is clarity. And it should not be read, if you're reading a précis, it should not sound like there are bits and pieces. It should be a very, very unified whole, right? Okay. You should articulate the writer's thought. Very important. You must put down whatever the writer is thinking. Whatever you are thinking is not important, right? So your précis will focus on the writer's opinion. Okay, and all information that you add into your précis must be from the text. It cannot have any information that is beyond the text. That is the reason I said whatever you feel, your opinion is not important here. You must focus on the writer's thoughts and opinions, but try to write it in your own words. Okay, now I've been talking about redundancy. So, what is redundant? What is excess? What do you need to prune when you are framing your précis? Number one, examples. You need to do away with examples. Examples should not be included in your précis. Number two, ideas should not be repeated. Number three, quotations. Okay. Number four, figures of speech. And number five, adjectives. So this is what you should remember when you're writing your précis, and these are all the redundant things that you cannot include in your final draft of précis. So examples, repetition of ideas, quotation, figures of speech, and adjectives. Okay? Now, let's move on. And if you remember our agenda, I said that we would be talking about evaluation. So, when we evaluate your précis, or when your examiner is looking at your précis, what are the different things that he is looking out for? Right? Let's take a look at that. So, the first thing is the title. So, you have some marks, some weightage given to the title. And as I said, it should be crisp and precise, and it should reflect the essence of the passage. Try to frame your title in such a manner that it's not only catchy, it should be crisp, and but at the same time, it should talk about the main idea of the passage. Number two, word limit. You have a lot of weightage when it comes to the word limit. If you overshoot the mark, or you do not reach the lower margin, you will be penalized heavily. So it should be one third of the passage, and make sure you adhere strictly. Now, please understand, if your précis is not meeting the word limit, two things might have happened. Either you have missed out on important points, and that's the reason you do not have a lot to write, or you have included a lot of irrelevant material, and that's the reason the you have overshot the mark. It's you have written a lot and you have crossed the the word limit. So that is a sort of a commentary on your content. Yes, your content will be affected. So it's very important that you write keeping this in mind, that you are only going to focus on whatever is relevant, right? Okay, content. Your content should talk about the main idea. The content must display a logical progression of ideas. They should be smooth, and the transition should be smooth. There should not be any gaps, or the presentation should not be scattered. author's opinion. You need to include author's opinion. You need to write in your own words and not copy paste it from the passage. And another very important thing is try to write in one paragraph. You need not make multiple paragraphs when you are writing a précis. Please keep your ideas focused. Yes, keep it together and do not write more than one paragraph. Now let's look at the last criteria, grammar. Yes, so use of indirect speech, appropriate tense, third person. And as I said, the tense of the précis should be same as that of the passage. Now, grammar also holds, it's very, very important and has a lot of weightage. So your grammar, your spellings, your punctuations, and use of capital and small letters, all these things are very much a part of the evaluation criteria. If you miss out on any of these, if you make mistakes, you would be also be penalized in the grammar category. So title, word limit, content, grammar, please remember them. These are your main evaluation criteria. So when your examiner is looking at your précis, he will be ticking off against each of these category and give you marks for each of these categories. Okay, now let's quickly work together and try to work out a sample précis. What you can do is that you can pause your video here and you can read the passage. Take some time, read the passage. Time yourself when you're reading the passage because you do not have all the time in the world. Your time is limited, and you can go ahead and write out the précis, and then you can match with the sample answer that we have provided. But if you take a look at the précis, if you take a look at the passage, right? Give yourself a minute to read the passage. Okay? Okay. Now, this part of the passage mainly talks about demonetization, right? Why it was launched, why it was introduced, right? Why this policy was introduced in the market, and how did it affect, what was its effect on common people? How did it affect the common people? Now, there are three things that you need to include here. Number one, why was it introduced? So it was introduced to so that the economy can be formalized. Number two, demonetization did not fare well. It had all the good intentions in the world, but it really hit hard when it came to the common people. It not only affected the tax dodgers and crooks, but it also affected the common people who were trying to scratch out a living. Okay, now if you try to highlight the main points, you will see that this is a very important point. Here is a very important point here. So, and here this is about Mr. Modi trying to formalize the economy. And then you move down and you will see. So, one of his very important pro formality policy was the demonetization. And the next line sort of tells you that it did not fare well, although it had all the good intentions at heart. Okay, so it did not only throttle the crooks and dodgers, tax dodgers, it also hit hard, affected hundreds of millions of people who were trying to scratch out a living. Now, take a minute and go through the second part of the passage. Okay, did we do that? Okay, now if you look at the first part, you will see rather than nudging them towards better behavior, as policymakers are often advised to do, demonetization was more akin to a cricket bat to a head. You do not need to include this. See, cricket bat to a head is an explanation. It's an imagery, it's a figure of speech. So you are comparing the effect of demonetization on common people to like being hit on the head by the crooked bat. But remember what we said? We do not include figures of speech. We do not include flowery language. We do not include explanations that is not relevant. So here we have a figure of speech, right? Akin to a crooked bat to a head. Here we have an imagery, but this we do not need. This would be a repetition of ideas because we've already said demonetization hit us hard, right? So we do not need to include this. Just an example trying to tell you what to keep and what to eliminate. Now, the next paragraph is very important because here we have a suggestion, author's opinion. So, a better approach is to tempt people out of the shadows, but out of the shadows again is an imagery, and we do not need to keep it. We can pick up this point. So, what are we supposed to do? The government screamed to provide bank accounts to all citizens and have them linked to mobile phones, and biometric national IDs has turbocharged digital payments. So, what is important is framing a policy and implementing a policy that's going to benefit everyone, all sections of the people. So, a good thing would be to digitalize the biometrics, okay, so that tax payments are very, very easy to track. Yes, it can be tracked. If you move down, you will see that here we also have some very, very important points here. Yeah, this is also important because apart from formalizing the economy, we should also focus on sensible rule making. So, and how can we ensure that the rule that we are framing is sensible? Is trying to focus on important areas. So, focusing on labor laws, focusing on business taxes, right? So, these are very important things that need to be focused on. Now, what the government did was to, it missed all these points. It tried to focus on demonetization, but it did not work out. So we need to look for solutions that are effective and that, if implemented, will at the end of the day benefit the common people, even those who are right at the grassroots level. So, keeping this in mind, once we do that, once we read the passage and we have been able to separate the grain from the chaff, or in other words, we've been able to separate whatever is excess, is redundant, whatever needs to be eliminated, and whatever needs to be kept, let's quickly take a look at the final draft, right? So now we'll first look at the title. Now, what's happening? If you read the passage and ask yourself, what is happening in the passage? So we are talking about a policy that had all the good intentions in heart, but ultimately did not work out. Now, with this idea in mind, let us look at the title options that we have. So it can be a misfired approach. It can be an approach gone awry. It can be noble intentions but wrong execution. Yes, suits. And a relook at formalization, where you are looking back and trying to find out the strengths and weaknesses inherent in the policy. So, if you read the passage, you will see. So, we have included the fact that a new policy was introduced. Now, this was targeted those that were evading taxes. Yes. Now, the idea behind this was that formal sectors enhanced tax collections. The result did not show a good uh, effect. The results were not good because all common people was affected adversely. It badly hurt those who were in the informal sector. Now, next we have a better approach. So we have included author suggestion as well. Now, what did we talk about after that? We talked about introducing attractive schemes and packages so that people can be led into the formal economy rather than forcing them into the formal economy. We talked about innovation, new ideas, which includes ways and means to reduce corruption, reform in the labor laws, and the in a nutshell we can say, and the final idea seems to be that our prime minister had all good intentions at heart. So he was on the right track. But the way it was implemented was incorrect. Okay, so if you see, we have included all the important points. We haven't included explanations, we haven't included figures of speech, we haven't included different examples. We had, if you read the passage, we had a lot of examples. Yes, so we did not include all the examples. We included only those that were relevant. Now, if you see, we didn't even include any example. We mainly picked up the main idea and we added to it. Okay? Yes, yes. You will be able to identify if you read the sample carefully, you will see that we haven't really focused on the irrelevant matter. We have tried to build our Prezi on whatever is essential. Okay, this is something you should remember when you're practicing and you're preparing yourself for the exam. Okay, so if you take a look at the PPT once again and try to make a list of all the important things before you start writing your Prezi, take a look at the important points. That will help you to keep this important to-dos in mind when you're writing your Prezi so that you do not miss them. Okay, so that's all for this video, and I hope you liked this video and found this exercise useful. As I said, please stay safe, think positive, take care of yourself and others, and stay tuned. We will be back very soon with another video. Thanks for watching.